Welcome to Middle Math Academy, Adding and Subtracting Decimals, level number 1. This is part of our differentiated series where we have 5 levels of challenge for every topic. Let's get started. Our learning targets today are I can identify keywords and word problems, and I can add and subtract decimals using a model in the standard algorithm. Go ahead and before we get started, rate yourself 1 through 5 on our learning targets. 1 is the least confident, 5 is the most confident. Pause the video and complete our opening problems, then come back to the video. Our opening says write each image as a decimal. So when we look at our first image, we can see that we have 4 boxes completely shaded in. So we can write this as 4 or 4 holes, or you could also write it as 4.0 or 4.00. They are all equivalent. Let's take a look at our next image. If we were writing this image as a fraction, we would write it as 4 out of 10 are shaded in. But the problem asks us to write it as a decimal, so we could write it as 0.4 with 4 in the 10th spot. And then our last image, if it was a fraction, we would write it as 4 out of 100, since there's a total of 100 boxes. But we're writing it as a decimal, so we can write 0.04 with 4 in the hundredths spot. Let's take a look at our notes. Make sure you're writing with me. Our first step in adding and subtracting decimals is to line up your decimals and write them in evenly. A good rule of thumb is to space each number and have 1 pinky's worth of space between each number. You can see on our notes that we have a little example of spreading out our numbers and decimals evenly. Step number 2, write in a 0 placeholder if needed. You can see in this example, originally we were just adding 2, but to keep our decimals lined up, I added in 2 0 placeholders to make sure everything was super neat and organized. Our next step, step 3, is to add or subtract from right to left. So in our example, the first thing I did is I added 5 plus 5. Okay, so you start on the right-hand side, and we'll practice this in just a second. Then when you solve, you're going to bring the decimal straight down. And lastly, step 5 is to use estimation to ensure your answer is reasonable. So in this example right here, we had 2 plus 1.25 plus 1.05, and I rounded each number to the nearest whole number. So I got 2 plus 1, which is 4. That's an easier problem. And because my sum or my answer was 4.30, that tells me I'm on the right track. If I estimated and I got 400 as my original answer, that would be a red flag and let me know I need to go back and check my work. Let's talk about some keywords for addition. Keywords for addition are sum, make sure you're writing with me. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Sum, in all together, total, and increase. And these aren't the only words. These are just some of them. Let's zoom in on some subtraction keywords. And remember, you can always pause the video if you need more time. Subtraction, difference is a huge keyword for subtraction. What's the difference between two numbers? Minus, decrease, subtract, and fewer than. And then lastly, spent. And similarly, these aren't the only keywords, but here are some of them. Take a look at our examples at the bottom. Example A says, shade in 1 plus 32 hundredths, then write the sum. Let's underline sum since that's one of our keywords for adding. Sum is the answer to an addition problem, and I'm going to zoom in. One of our learning targets today was to add and subtract decimals using a model, and so we're going to practice that now. We'll start by shading in with your pencil 1, so we'll shade in 1 hole. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then in our next box, we'll shade in 32 hundredths, so 32 out of 100. Each column is 10, so we can just make it a little easier by counting by tens, 20, 30, and then we have 1, 2. So we shaded in our model. Now that we've done that, we can write our sum, which is 1 and 32 hundredths. Let's take a look at example B. Example B says, find the sum, okay, so let's underline that again, keyword for adding, of 7 and 2 hundredths and 9 and 5 tenths. So now we're going to practice the standard algorithm. When you write your numbers, try to put a pinky's worth of distance between each number to keep it neat and lined up. So I'll write 7 and 2 hundredths. plus 9 and 5/10. As we talked about in our notes, if there's ever a blank, we can put a 0 placeholder. So let's go ahead and do that. So now everything's super neat and lined up. And now we're going to start on the right-hand side by adding 2 plus 0 first. So 2 plus 0 is 2. 0 plus 5 is 5. Bring down your decimal right beneath where it is. And 7 plus 9 is 16. So our answer using the standard algorithm is 16 and 52 hundredths. And we can use estimation to check our work. So I can round 7 and 2 hundredths to 7. And 9 and 5/10 to 10. And this just creates an easier problem to let us know we're on the right track. 7 plus 10 is 17. So if I had $16.52, that is close to 17. So my estimation lets us know that we are on the right track. Let's take a look at example C. Example C says, write the difference, okay, let's underline difference, keyword for subtraction, of 12 and 75 hundredths and 9 and 1/100th. When we're subtracting, the order that they give you the numbers, you have to keep that order. So because 12 and 75 hundredths came first, we're going to write that number first super neatly. 9 and 1/100th came second, so we'll write that second. Decimals should be right on top of each other, super lined up. We have nothing under the 1, so we can put a 0 placeholder to help stay organized. And then once again, we'll start on the right-hand side. 5 minus 1. Well, if I have $5 and I spend $1, that gives us $4. 7 minus 0 is 7. Bring down the decimal point. If I have $2, I can't spend $9. I don't have enough money, so I need to borrow. So I'm going to move one number to the left. I'm going to borrow from this 1, and it'll go down a number. So it becomes a 0. And once you borrow, you can think of it as like earning $10. So since I borrowed, now my 2 becomes a 12. I earned 10. And 12 minus 9 is 3. So using the standard algorithm, our answer is $3 and not dollars, 3.74, 3 and 74 hundredths. And I can use estimation to check my work. 12 and 75 hundredths, I can round to 13. 9 and 1/100th, I can round to 9. And 13 minus 9 is 4. So if I had $4, that's super close to $3.74, which lets me know I'm on the right track. Complete the first 2 problems on page 2, then come back to the video to check your work. Check your work for our first problem on page 2, fix any mistakes. And then check your work for the second problem. Once you're done checking your work, complete the rest of page 2 and get your teacher's initials and get feedback from them. Come back to the video when you're ready for page 3. On page 3, we're practicing the same thing as page 2, but now it's with subtraction, so it's just a little bit different. The first thing we're going to do when we're showing models using subtraction is we're going to shade in our first number. So our first number here is 1 and 85 hundredths. So I'm going to shade in 1 whole, and then 85 hundredths. Okay. And then our second number is what you're going to cross out. So we're going to cross out 35 hundredths or 35 boxes. So here's 5 boxes I'm going to cross out, and then I'm going to cross out 3 rows of 10. Okay, so all of these are crossed out. Sometimes it helps to use a highlighter so it's easier to see and cross out. All right, and then the second part of our direction says to find the difference using the standard algorithm. So we're going to line up our numbers, 1.85 minus 0.35. And we just subtract. 5 minus 5 is 0. 8 minus 3 is 5. Bring down our decimal, and we get 1 and 50 hundredths, which makes sense because the part that we didn't cross out shows 1 and 50 hundredths. Go ahead and complete this next problem on page 3, then come back to the video to check your work. Pause the video, check your work, then complete the rest of page 3 and check in with your teacher to get feedback. Come back to the video once you're ready for page 4. On page 4, you're going to solve using the standard algorithm and then use estimation to check your answer. Complete problems C and D, pause the video, then come back to the video to check your work on just those 2 problems. Let's check our work on problem C first. Make sure you used estimation to check your answer as well. Now let's check problem D. Complete the rest of page 4. Then check in with your teacher to get feedback. Come back to the video when you're ready for page 5. On page 5, you're going to underline keywords in each problem, solve using the standard algorithm, and then use estimation to check your answer. To make sure you're on the right track, complete only problems A and B, pause the video, then come back to the video to check your work. The first part of the direction said to underline keywords. So the keywords you should have underlined are altogether and difference for these first 2 problems. I'll zoom in on A so you can check the standard algorithm and make sure that you estimate it as well. Now let's check our work for B. Complete the rest of page 5, then check in with your teacher to get feedback. Once you finish page 5 and check in with your teacher, go ahead and come back to the video when you're ready for page 6. Complete all of page 6, then come back to the video when you're ready to check your work. Go ahead and check your work for our common misconception problem. This video will not check our closing problems, but please make sure that you do these 2 problems. And then lastly, make sure to complete our debrief questions. In your own words, what did you learn today? How much effort did you put in during class? Rate yourself 1 through 5. 1 is the lowest, 5 is the highest. And what do you think is a common misconception a student might make when adding and subtracting decimals? Once you finish page 6, you are going to go back to page number 1. At the beginning of today's lesson, we rated ourselves 1 through 5 on our learning targets. Now that we've gotten some more practice, you're going to rate yourself on our learning targets again. Make sure to circle 1 through 5 after the lesson. 1 is the lowest, 5 is the most confident. And as always, make sure to check in with your teacher for page 6 to get feedback. Thank you for joining us today at Middle Math Academy, where we practiced adding and subtracting decimals level number 4. This is part of our differentiated series where we have 5 levels of challenge for every topic. If you're looking for any additional practice, make sure to check out levels 1, 2, 3, or our most challenging level, level 5. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful day.